Yeah, g'day everyone. Welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winny and Clarkey for our round 19 NRL preview. We're going to go through all the action. We're going to talk a little bit of Origin Game 2 team list. We've got all that and more planned for you. Before we get to it, let me welcome in my beautiful co-host, the first ever president of TryPod Live, Jacob Winston Churchill. Winny, how are you, my brother?
Good, thanks, mate. I consider myself more like the vice president. You steer the ship, mate. You do a great job. I've been better because we had another losing best bet round. You're kind of breaking even if you're equally staking the mixed matchup, which I think is fair. Mixed matchups equally on par with the best bet, but nonetheless, 1 and 2 again last week deserve better. When your winner is 74-0 with Cowboys, but your loser is blown away by Penrith's best 50 minutes of the season and some dodgy tries called by the bunker in there as well. And then the Dolphins cover the line, but I went first half and I have to cop the loss there. We did win the mixed matchup at least. Lost the same gamer, but we did win also your take on Toppy tip. And I'm just going to straight off the bat say welcome in, guys, and thanks for joining us. My most popular social media post of the year was actually a cricket meme, so let us know what you thought. Was Alex Carey's dismissal fair play? We want to know. I also, before I throw back to you, Clarky, I got a shout out. Happy birthday to the one and only Alexi Podolsky, because you and I wouldn't be sitting here right now if it wasn't for Alexi creating the TryPod with me 9 years ago. So he may work for the enemy now, but look, if you're a punter, you need bookies too. So if you're having a drink, as Alexi loved to do often while hosting live, raise a glass for the big fella.
Raise a glass for the big fella, the godfather of TryPod, if you will. Yeah, congratulations to that. All right, so we are going to go into our best bets. Then we'll go into our Game 2 team list. Before we get to that, though, let's go best bets right away. Let's draw back the curtains. What have you got for us in the way of best bets this week?
So firstly, I'll say, not a good year so far. If you single out the best bets, I'm the first to admit that. If you want to go the opposite to these, I accept that. I've never seen anyone do it successfully and stick around very long. I do have a couple of plays that I think will get a bit of resistance. So let me know if you agree, disagree. I'm going to tell you why I like Parramatta under 19.5 at $1.88, which is on Sportsbet. That's their team total because they are down basically their 4 starting spine members. So the Origin selections, which we're going to talk about in a second, Gutho being out, I think Parramatta have shown multiple times this year they can cover 1, even 2 spine members being out, but all 4 being out now is compounded cluster losses at key positions. And we've got New Zealand coming off a humbling loss. But what I know New Zealand can do is hang with the para forward pack and defend. So I really can't see the Eels having a lot of success scoring in this one. I think it could be tight. It could be low scoring. And I actually think New Zealand gets the better. So I like Para's team total under. And then I like the Canterbury Bulldogs playing South. So I know if you just look at these teams on the ladder or their chance to win the comp, you might be quite shocked. But this week, with the amount of outs that the South Sydney Rabbitohs have got to endure both through injury and Origin selections. And Clarky, I like a team sometimes to bounce back off their lowest moment, their rock bottom, their most embarrassing defeat. I think the Bulldogs can do that. Call me crazy. I think the Bulldogs have a stronger 17 than the Bunnies in this one. I'm calling it a WTF, wrong team favourite. So best odds available on that one, $2.02 on Dabble. And I'm going to back that one right now. You can copy it if you agree.
It's an interesting one. While you were talking there, I was doing the stats in the background. Warriors are conceding an average of 19 points so far this year. And you'll have to imagine if they're conceding that, with some of the likes of the teams they've versed, then that does lead to that Eels bet a lot. The Eels do average 27.5 points this year, but I think you made a great point. Missing their entire spine, you probably do deduct at least 10 points off that total there. So great bet there. And yeah, I agree with the Bulldogs. There's 2 teams that need to bounce back this week, and I definitely think the Bulldogs would be more preferred for me to make that bounce back. I will have something new for you guys here. It's not quite a best bet. I'll get into it a bit later in the show, but what we're essentially going to be doing is a $10 to 1K challenge, and I'll be handing that out each week after Winnie goes through his best bets. So I'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But yeah, they are our best bets. We'll now go to Origin Game 2. Team lists are out. Of course, we will have our full Origin preview on Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. That'll be next week. But for now, we're going to bring those Origin teams up on screen. Key changes for the Maroons. Corey Horsburgh comes in for Thomas Flegler, and AJ Brimson comes in for Reece Walsh. For the Blues, Bradman Best comes in to centres, Clinton Gutherson to fullback, Cody Walker into the halves, Jake Travojevic at prop, Keon Kolomatangi at back row, Regan Campbell-Gillard at prop, and then their entire extended squad is new as well, with Lanu, Drinkwater, Jacob Saifidi on the bench. My apologies. So there's that many changes for the Blues. I'll let you start. Where do you want to start, Blues or Maroons?
I'm basically just going to talk Blues, but I will reply to some comments. What's your thoughts on Bradman Best? We'll get to that one. Happy birthday, Alexi. What happened to Alexi? Asked DJ Kaisi. He now works for the company that owns Ladbrokes and Neds, so he's on the other side, poached away from the pod. James says Bunker would have given it out, caught behind. Mark says 4 spine out for Para. Hands is better than Hodgson. I'll agree to 3. That's a fair debate, but you get my point there of their starters and certainly 3 really important players. Stephen, is Sean Johnson out for the Warriors? Most likely, yes. We're going to get to that one. And James Graham, Jammer, says Fittler has lost it totally, mentally frazzled. So let's begin there. And I did say this. You could spend a whole pod on Origin. We're going to just try and make it quick, but I've got a bit of ramblings here. I did say this. I raised the questions before a ball was kicked in Origin 1 about Freddie, his ability to pick the best team and his ability to coach a team to bring out their best ability. Obviously, the Blues have lost both games in the series since then. It's easy to go back in retrospect and say, a decision was wrong or right. Everyone, even if we have no experience ever coaching rugby league or playing, everyone can have an opinion on which player you should have picked, how you should have used them, right? But it doesn't really matter even who was right or wrong. I think we can't argue with the fact that it definitely appears that New South Wales are chasing their tail with these selections. So I just want to go on a little roller coaster here. Most important game of 2022 is what? The decider, the Origin decider? Well, New South Wales picked 2 hookers in that game. But then before game 1 this year, 2 hookers don't work for us. But then the Blues lost game 1 this year. The 2 hookers are back for game 2 and game 3. Before game 1, Nico is in the team on his form. Nico could not be denied. He deserves his spot in the team. But then they couldn't figure out how to get Hines on the field. Only once a player was ruled out totally through HIA and Hines comes on and plays centre for 12 minutes. And once New South Wales loses the game, then the line around Hines changed. It wasn't that he was undeniable on form. It was he was in the team for versatility. So that's why he didn't have to swap in for Nathan Cleary, because he wasn't the best player at that position. He was just the most versatile. But then New South Wales didn't want a versatile player on the bench in game 2. They went, again, 2 hookers and no outside back cover. And what happens? You lose an outside back 3 minutes in. You got to play a hooker there. And so now what happens in game 3? Oh, well, now we're picking a fullback on the bench, arguably covers less positions than Nico Hines. And I'm a big fan of Gutho. But again, I'm wondering how are New South Wales going to use him? And if that really is the best plan to bring Gutho in, why wasn't their backline cover for the game in game 2 when the series was on the line? I'm going to go on. Hudson Young is dropped. Has he done much wrong? I asked the same question about Junior Barlow. We've got Kolomatangi and he's starting, and I totally agree with that. And I've been saying that. Why wasn't he good enough for the do or die game in game 2? Was Frizzell really a better option than Kolomatangi? But if that's the case, what's changed since then? Frizzell's team just won 66-0 on the weekend, right? Yuto Kamanu got picked for game 2. I don't mind that. If you think he's your best backup prop, he was picked ahead of RCG. He was picked ahead of Spencer Leniu. Gets 14 minutes, and now he's not good enough for this game, which Freddie said he's picked the team to win. Jacob Saifidi is now picked ahead of Yuto Kamanu. So why wasn't Saifidi picked in game 2 if he's the better option? And again, recency bias is that what's factoring into these decisions, because Burton was the best choice for the Blues in the decider last year. Is Burton a worse player this year? Now we move on to Bradman Best. Well, funnily enough, he had a hat-trick and his team won massively over Burton's team on the weekend. And I don't actually mind the Bradman Best selection. I said it on Sunday night. If you watch that game, you wouldn't pick anyone else. But it is funny how certain players, seems like just the luck of the draw of who they got to play against on the weekend really dictated whether they got in or out of the side. I'll be really quick. I'm going to talk about Queensland as well, and then I'll throw it over to you, because Queensland is so short and sweet. They've barely had to change the team. You've got 2 players out, and you just bring in the 18th and 19th men from last game. So one side is all smooth sailing, and then the other side is all at sea.
You're spot on there. And the Maroons changes just make sense. Like, if not Kalen Ponga, it's obviously AJ Brimson, and Corey Horsburgh is in such great form that a lot of people actually had him ahead of Thomas Flegler. So there's really nothing to review there from a Queensland perspective. They're very sensible and well-measured selections. Where you say luck of the draw, I completely agree. And you go back to game one with Tavita Pengai Jr., kind of got in off one game against the Titans, which aren't noted. We're not noted for our defense. It's as simple as that. I want to go to the Cody Walker selection because he's about 10 years older than Jerome Luai. And so if you had even an inkling that Cody Walker was going to help you win the series more so than Jerome Luai, you would do it when it is do or die. You wouldn't wait until the series is dead and then give the guy that's 10 years older a go. In my mind, you would do it the opposite way. Okay, series is over now. Let's give the young guy more experience. But it's not the way it's gone. For me, it reeks desperation of if I win game 3, maybe I can be extended. I want to win now. I don't care about what's best for my state in the future. But the amount of blues that have been dropped after one game. Let's go to the Bradman best selection at center. Sio Sifadalakai and Katoni Staggs both have played one game for the Blues and been dumped. They should be ahead. They've played Origin before. They're not ahead. Pengai Jr., Nico Hines, Talakai, Madison, Staggs, Jacob Saifidi, now back, but prior to that, Jordan McLean, Luke Keary, Nick Kotrick, Matt Pryor, Stefano Utuikamanu. These are all players that got one game and were then ditched. And I just think in Origin, Winnie, if you were good enough for the last game, you're good enough for the next. You were there for a reason. There are some exceptions to that. If you play absolutely shocking, like Hodges did on his debut, but it's quite rare, right? That's a very poor Hodger. That was a debut to forget. But yeah, the point remains, Winnie, some of these selections are genuinely head-scratching, and I think we can get into it a little bit deeper when we get into our preview show next Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Because although it is a dead rubber, everyone knows in Origin there's no such thing as a dead rubber.
I'll just push back one point you made there. I think it's fair to note this because I didn't mention Cody Walker and I didn't mention like Luai being dropped. The reason is, and Freddie did say this on the weekend, mind you, when I heard all the interviews with Freddie and also Brandy, they came in very defensive and very spiteful and very aggressive. And you can tell that this has really worn on them the last couple of years in particular. But Freddie did say, kind of threw Jerome under the bus and said, I would have picked Walker in game 2, but he was injured. So that's fair. Although Walker had that calf strain, right, and didn't play the weekend that the Blues team was selected for game 2, I definitely believe if Walker had played that weekend, he would have been picked for game 2. And then it raises the question, would you have then picked Adam Reynolds? But that's a whole separate argument. So I can't blame Freddie for only picking Walker now. I also don't blame Freddie for picking the team he thinks will win game 3 because there's always the argument, do you go for the future or go for the current, right? I know self-interest is you want to pick a team that wins because if you get swept, you've got 0% chance of retaining, the coaching role. But I don't think any Blues fans out there want to get swept. It's very rare. It only seems to happen once a decade. So I think everyone can appreciate picking the best team. My question marks is just about you should be picking the best team to win every game. And how has the strategy changed so much? And how often have the Blues contradicted themselves in the way they've justified their selections as well?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's 100%. There's some contradictions there. Several quotes from Freddie today that I want to get into more. So I did see someone say that Walker News on my page, but I couldn't find the quote myself, which is why I didn't narrow in on that. But absolutely fair if I have missed that for sure. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, we didn't hear from Tristan last week, but we will hear from him now. Let's go to Tristan for some exclusive market insights before we get into our round 19 preview.
G'day everyone, Tristan Merlihan here from Top Sport, and that was a very different week that we just saw in the world of rugby league. We've had such a close competition for the vast majority of this season so far, and then to have two massive blowouts and another pretty big scoreline between the Sharks and the Dragons certainly have differentiated some of ththose teams down the bottom of the ladder. Hopefully they can rectify things and we can get back to that closeness of the competition on the run home, but it is a little bit concerning. On the back of that, the Cowboys game was by far and away our worst result. Nearly everyone that took a same game multi was successful there on the Cowboys side. Obviously they covered the big minus. The Knights game wasn't as bad because the scoreline was the predicted line was a lot closer, so we didn't get that one-way traffic in that sense. But our best result of the weekend was actually the Bunnies against the Warriors. There was a good push towards the Warriors in the lead up to the game commencing. Our bad result, obviously, was the Cowboys-Tigers game. And then probably the frustrating one from our perspective, a lot of multis running into Manly. And I thought the Roosters had a decent chance there throughout the back end of the second half, and then we laid the plus to finish it off, so we got hit with that split. But that's football. We move on to the next week, where it's been a really tricky week to price. Obviously, we've got 3 teams all coming off massive losses in the Tigers, the Dragons, and the Bulldogs, but they do meet some of those teams under strength. The Eels-Warriors game's been very, very difficult to price. That one's seen the biggest move, where the Eels actually opened up 1.5 point favourites at the start of the week. It's now minus 3.5. Warriors favourites, but that's with Sean Johnson likely coming out of that team. It's a tough weekend to price. Titans, Dolphins obviously missing some key players, as well as the Bunnies, only 5.5 point favourites against the Bulldogs after that shellacking, but the Bunnies missing players as well. That line's moved from 8.5 into 5.5. Quick look at Origin. We opened that game at $1.82 Queensland favourite. It's now moved to $1.65, $2.25. Queensland still favourite out to 3.5, the line short of the minus. So one-way traffic for the Queenslanders. Good luck if you're having a bet on the weekend, and of course, gamble responsibly.
Great stuff there from Tristan. We appreciate his exclusive market insight as always. Let's jump into our round 19 preview. We've got Thursday, 7:50 p.m, kicking off with the Tigers v Sharks at CommBank Stadium. The line is possibly the biggest I've seen this year. Possibly. I think that's the biggest. Minus 22.5. I think Sharks are like $1.06 outright. That's also the lowest I've seen. For the Tigers, they're without their best defender, Alex Twal. So Atasi James comes onto the bench. Norfoluma and Naden are both out with shoulder injuries. And it didn't seem like they were doing too much tackling in their last game. So Tommy Talau, yeah, maybe. Asu Kiapoa come in there. For the Sharkies, Cam McInnes starts at lock for the suspended Dale Finucane. Toby Rudolph returns at prop for Braden Hamlin-Welle. Tell me, Winnie, are you going to lay the line this time for Sharkies, or is that just too big for you in this one?
You're right in saying that's the biggest of the season, and no surprises. West defeated 74-0, if anyone forgot. They play a Cronulla side that has scored 100 points in their past 2 outings. That's how you get the biggest line of the season so far. Now, the personnel changes, it is worth noting, although you kind of did it tongue-in-cheek, that none of the Tigers players dropped are technically on performance. It is injury and suspension. While Cronulla, which means that they're backing those players to step up and giving them an opportunity, which I actually like, and I think often does get a response. No major changes for Cronulla, getting Rudolph back at a good time with a couple of middle forwards out, and no origin impact on either team. A couple of players might feel they were snubbed, but that's it. Everyone's going to be on Cronulla. Everyone watching this and everyone punting in the World of Rugby League will be on Cronulla in this one, right? And let us know if you disagree. But I'm not going to be one of the people who backs Cronulla here. One of them is simply my principle that obvious sides just don't cover the line as often as people think. There's a reason why the bookies often drive fancier cars than typical Joe down the pub that has the same game multi and takes the favourite. However, if you are going to do that, I can't talk you out of it, knowing that Cronulla are ruthless bullies, knowing that Wests are, maybe at rock bottom, and maybe it is going to take more than a week to fix this. But call me crazy, when I looked at these lineups, I actually still like quite a few of West's players, and it gives me hope for the Tigers that they can actually rebound to a degree and be competitive. Rebound doesn't mean win this week, but be competitive, maybe keep it within 20 points. I really think, look at that Tigers starting pack. It stacks up. I know that Tim Sheen's, hinted that some players are playing a bit injured. So you're always concerned there because you don't really know who and what's just poor form. And, is it just an excuse? But then you look at the back line and there's, not a lot of consistency in that Tigers back line, but there's players that make things happen. And I'm someone that went against West last week for a best bet and a mixed matchup. And even I still say I lean to the plus 22.5. If I had to play it, however, I'm not brave enough. I'm also not going to tell you, don't do your crazy same gamer with a bunch of Sharks try scorers, because if you've been doing those type of multis, you've been winning the last couple of weeks. So you've probably got some extra to play with and you're probably going to have a go. I'm just going to remind people the NRL is a great competition because even the bottom sides don't necessarily get blown away every week. So That's my caution. I've got a try scorer tip to share from Nicole, but how do you see this one first, Clarky?
Mate, almost completely different here. I'm absolutely honest. I know a week is a long time in rugby league, and you proved that point against me multiple times during the World Cup where you were getting your tips right and I was getting them wrong. But in this one, I think that the same points remain for me last week that remain for both of these sides. The Tigers aren't playing for much at the moment. Their players look disinterested. It's such a powerful forward pack, but it was the same forward pack last week. They got blown away by 74 points, whereas the Sharkies seem to always beat these bottom 8 sides at least 13 plus. They seem to always continue to play into the second half and really are flat track bullies, if you will, because they do struggle against that elite of the competition. But great record against bottom 8 sides. I've got no doubt the Tigers will really narrow in on their defense this week. They absolutely will train that all week. That'll be their key focus. But in the modern system, I don't really rate Tim Sheens too highly as a coach. I'm not sure in the modern game if he's equipped to turn this side around in a week. And on the flip side of that, his assistant coach in Benji Marshall it was the first time he was ever properly thumped as an assistant coach. And so it's new territory for him as well. So I don't believe in the direction the Tigers are headed in whatsoever. I think Sharkies will win here 13 plus comfortably. And if I had to play it, I actually would go that line. I took them big against the Dragons last week, and thankfully I got that. But I'm going Sharks 13 plus Winnie. And if you can give me a second, I've got the team list here in a hat. I'm going to pick out 3. Rudolph. Ronaldo Mulatalo. And Matt Moylan. There's your multi. Sharks 13 plus, Moylan, Mulatalo, and Rudolph in his return anytime try scores. I don't know what the hell it pays. I don't know the stats behind it, but the magic hat has spoken. The Ringers Western.
It is the biggest line of the year, so bit disrespectful to the Tigers that you just think anyone out of a hat might score a try. And you've been doing well with your try scorer predictions, Clarky. Well, you're dead even for the year, which actually is good when try score markets are set up against the punter because everyone loves to back someone to score. There's some more breaking news, some comments from Freddie and Brandy that you might have missed. Now, these are not verified, but John has shared them here. Apparently, Freddie said to Brandy, okay, we're screwed. Who can we take down with us? And Brandy said, let's rip the guts out of the Eels and Rabbitohs in a dead rubber. Now, those are quotes unconfirmed, but if true, well, just huge. Now, you've picked some outlandish try scorers there. I heard Toby Rudolph, right? But none are going to shock people more than this one, maybe. From Nicole from Wiki, picked a try scorer, and it might not be the player you'd necessarily expect. Although I'm looking here, and I'm not sure if I've got that clip ready to play. So we might have to roll into the next game, and I'll tee it up as we do.
Yeah, no worries at all. Let me roll into the next game, and I'll kick off that preview while you do that then. Friday, 8 p.m., it's the Dragons v Raiders. We're at Wynn Stadium, Wollongong. Not quite sure on the line for this one. I'll get that to you after as well. For the Dragons, Tyrell Sloan is out with that shoulder complaint. So Paul Turner moves to fullback. Moses Sully is back at centre. The halves are Sullivan and Amone. Dan Russell makes his NRL debut via the bench. For the Raiders, Corey Horsburgh and Pasami Saulo are out. So Murray Otter and Gula start. And Trey Mooney, who was a really big touted youngster and rookie this year, he joins the bench with Peter Holler. Your line is minus 11.5. Do we have that clip ready, Winnie, or do you want me to roll into my preview?
Okay, you do your preview because that clip's done a vanishing act on me, and I know it's going to be a really interesting one. So you tell us how you see this one first. I'll dig it up.
Perfect. I'm going to have to go the Raiders here. I know they don't typically win by big margins, so that line does surprise me a little bit. 11.5. I think it could be a little bit of a trap, but by the same token, it is hard to really think the Dragons are going to show up and something's going to be different here for them, especially without Ben Hunt and Tyrell Sloan. I think Ben Hunt is so integral to everything they do, and I think Tyrell Sloan is their best attacking weapon that can kind of create nothing out of something and get them their points. The Dragons have conceded 100 points in their last 2 games, so there is the off chance here that the Raiders can cover that line comfortably and do have a more of a high-scoring win as opposed to what we typically see from them. But the last time the Dragons held an opponent to under 20 was back in round 10, so 9 weeks ago. Absolutely, I think the Raiders have more than 20 points in them. and they're better defensively. So I am really confident the Raiders do win here head-to-head. Not that that's too much of a bold pick under any circumstances. Dragons have lost their last 9 games in a row without Ben Hunt. So, yeah, you look at all those stats, and Raiders have won 6 of their last 8 against Dragons. There's that one as well. You put that all together, guys, I think you're silly to tip anything but the Raiders in this one. The line is still slightly concerning to me, but over to you, Winnie, to get us that clip up or give your preview.
Yes, so I'll get to Dragons Raiders, of course, in a moment. Another game that's going to have lopsided action, but just to touch back on the Thursday night, Sharks Tigers. As I said, a try scorer from an unlikely source.
Hey guys, it's Nicole, the founder of Wiki. What you see over here is our premium odds comparison tool, our content and previews and everything for NRL round 19 and for State of Origin is up. Just Google Wiki Linktree and you'll find it. The pick I'm going to talk about here is Utu Kamanu from the Tigers. I know they're meant to get smacked, but I looked at his stats. He scored the first try one in every 23 games he's played, the last try one in every 15 games he's played, and you could find that market at $81 on Dabble for both of those. So good luck, guys. Gamble responsibly and enjoy the weekend of footy.
There you go, big Stefano. So that might tie into my thinking that sometimes these games aren't as easy to predict as it may appear, which could be the case on Friday night too in Raiders Dragons. Hunt and Sloan are the Dragons' best 2 attacking weapons, but it is a luxury when you can bring Talatau Moan, give him an opportunity in the halves, and Sully is a big boost as well. And as you said, Horsburgh out, but no Young. It's like minimal disruption for the Raiders on this occasion. And the Green Machine have won the last 2 weeks by less than a converted try as well, and come into a game where they've got a huge opportunity to make it 3 on the trot. As I said, I know the public's going to be all on the double-digit favourite, although isn't it funny that this double-digit favourite, the Canberra Raiders, have won a grand total of 0 games out of 16 by double digits this season. They just refuse to win big. They seem to win. If they do, it's a tight one. They've got a big opportunity to change this stat, and I know the punters will expect that they will. And I will not go against Canberra in this one. I just like the way they're constructed. It's not sustainable to win every close game. They'll lose a close game here or there along the way. But they are just a tough assignment for anyone they go up against. They make you earn it. And being tough and playing for 80 might be all you need to secure the 2 points against St. George. So I do like the Dragons. But if I take a step back, look, I'm not one to predict an exact margin. And I don't even necessarily say, I think the line should be exactly this, because, look, setting lines is a difficult task. But for me to come up with best bets, I've got to have something in my mind of what the line should be. When I looked at Sharks Tigers, I thought, 20, hard for me to get that line past 20, and it's in the low 20s. And I thought this line should maybe be more like 10, but we're beyond 10 now. So I'm not getting enough value. That's why I'm not on the underdog. But I also think it's just a bit steep, a bit priced in the popularity to the favorite. So that's why I haven't had a play on a Thursday or Friday night, and I'm not going to be shocked if at least one of these games is surprisingly tight.
And, I think that for this game, I'll actually think by the time kickoff rolls off, you'll get a bigger plus margin for the Dragons, if I'm honest. I think a lot of punters will just follow the simple trail, and that is Raiders should win here. Let's just take that line. They'll win 13 plus. And, it might not go that way. As you said, they don't seem to win big this year. So, I'm nervous about them winning by double digits, but I've got no concerns they win at all, which leads me into the new segment that I kind of teased at the start. So we're going to go, I think we don't really have a name for it just yet. We're going to call it something like Clarkey's All or Nothing Challenge. We'll come up with a cool name for it soon. We actually talked about this concept today, but what we're going to do is we're going to start with $10, and every week I'm going to give something that I think is very likely to win. And we're going to build that hopefully up to around $1,000 by the end of the season. So we start with 10. If we won 20, our next bet's 20. If we won 50, our next bet is 50, so on and so on until we reach that golden number of $1,000, hopefully. So starting us off this week, we've got a multi paying $1.58. We're going to go Sharks minus 10.5 and Raiders head to head. As I said, I'm extremely confident the Raiders win head to head here. I've got no concerns over that. And I think the Sharkies are more than good enough to beat the Tigers at this stage by 13 plus. So take it at minus 10.5 there, a little bit more beefy than the 9.5 option. That is our Clarkey's challenge this week. So that'll be $1.58. Hopefully we win it. We'll roll into next week. If not, we will restart and go from there. And last thing for the Dragons-Raiders game, guys, don't forget our Better Same Game Multi will be on this game. It will always be brought to you by Better. Winnie will cook something up on Friday. He's already hit 4 winners this year at $7 plus odds, and the sign-up link is in our description if you want to go ahead and prepare now while we are live. But before jumping on any bookie, think, is this a bet you really want to place? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website. That information is also in this show's description if you are listening as a podcast. Which moves us on to Saturday. Not quite a super Saturday, but we do have the 2 games. We kick off at 5:30 p.m. It's the Eels v Warriors. We're at Combank Stadium in Sydney, and the line is set at -3.5 in the Warriors' favour. For the Eels, they're without Gutherson, Regan Campbell-Gillard, and Mitchell Moses. Sean Lane returns from injury, and of course, Big JP is still there, missing selection in the Blues side. For the Warriors, exact same 17 as last round. However, Sean Johnson is going to be given up until Friday to travel with the team. So we don't know 100% yet if he's playing, but that is because they are expecting the birth of their second child. Should Sean Johnson not travel with the team, Ronald Volkman is named as his replacement at this stage. So with that in mind, Winnie, I'm really on the fence for this one for my tip, but I know you are pretty keen on the Warriors in this one, wasn't it, with the best bet?
Yeah, and it's tricky because I like the Warriors, but you could have Johnson confirmed out, and then the line will crunch in to probably pick him. I feel like my Eels under is a little bit Sean Johnson proof, because if he's out, I think in general it trends to a lower scoring, tighter game anyway, and I don't think it increases the amount of points Para is going to score necessarily. And if Johnson was to play, let's say he did whatever with the timeline there, was able to manage it, then you still got a strong bet, and the line may in fact increase to 5.5, and that team total may move 0.5 point or in either direction. But I'm quite confident with that. 19.5 likely takes more than 3 tries to beat you, especially when you're down to your third choice goal kicking option as well. So I'm going against an Eels team that is off a bye and has won 5 in a row. Not only that, if you go back and look at these Eels wins, they're winning by an average margin of 20 points per game, and they're at home. Whereas we've got the Warriors, who were actually above Parramatta on the ladder every round this season until last week, where they were brought back to earth by what I've got to say was a very impressive South Sydney, just when it felt like the Warriors fans, maybe not just because they've been saying it all year, but they were realistically dreaming a top 4, and the Warriors fans, you could just see the plan coming together. No Origin involvement. So this was their time to kind of surge up the ladder. 4 out of 5 wins, a back-end schedule with a lot of home games. This was the Warriors' time, and they did get brought back to earth, losing by, 26 points last week. But the fact of the matter is this is another huge opportunity for the Warriors to take advantage of State of Origin. With no Campbell-Gillard, okay, Barlow's playing, but either way, you're losing one, test caliber prop. Mitchell Moses out, and that's extra lucky because of the Cleary injury, the domino effect that Para loses their halfback for some NRL games. The surprise selection of Gutho is big, and I feel like you play a game without Moses, Gutho does more, right? Or if Gutho was out, Moses could do more, but they're both out. So now I feel like we're significantly depleting this Eels side. I'm going to remind everyone again, Dylan Brown is out without his services as well. Hopgood is Queensland's 19th man. We've got to mention that, but my understanding is he'll be released out of camp to come and play lock. You're nodding there, Clarkey. So you've already said Sean Johnson. So, we understand that situation for New Zealand, which does make this a tough one to tip. But even if Johnson was out, I think I'd just still lean to New Zealand. I know people will ask me once that's official. So if it was Pickham, I'd probably still take New Zealand and still be comfortable with our best bet, which again is Eels under 19.5. $1.88. And again, I don't take too much away from New Zealand's loss last week. I do think it was a gargantuan effort by the opponent. Sometimes you play an opponent that's just absolutely locked in, and you're not going to look too good on a night like that. I haven't lost faith in New Zealand. I know that their forward pack can take away what is Parramatta's biggest strength, which is kind of that yardage game. And I also think New Zealand's defense can make it a really tough night for a spine that consists of Hands, Arzi, Madison, and Russell. With all due respect, that's why I'm playing my best bet that way.
My question is, who goal kicks for the Eels? I was having a look while you were speaking there.
I'm going to take a guess at Dejan Arce,
Yeah,
but
I
not
thought
a
him or Sean
noted goal
Russell if I
kicker.
had to guess. No, I'd actually have to have a look and see who kicks, or if any of them ever kicked in reserve grade, because let's give the kicking tee to Big Junior Bolo. I don't think it could get any worse, right? Let's hit Big JP the kicks. But to be honest, this is difficult for me to tip just yet until I know whether Sean Johnson is in or not. If he's in, I go Warriors. If not, I probably lean to the Eels for an upset. I don't really like them that much, but they have played quite well recently without some Origin players being in and out, and without Dylan Brown. They have managed to still score points. Madison was better than I expected at 5'8", as was RC at halfback. So I probably do lean to the Eels just. I thought they have been in some solid form recently. The interesting thing for this is the Eels lead the NRL in offloads, whereas the Warriors are 15th for offloads. So I think the Eels can still be dangerous without their key men, because they do throw that footy around a little bit more, whereas the Warriors are really structured in their shape, in their attack, all really flows off Sean Johnson. And so if he's removed, they're not going to have that same offload, that same potency in attack. So I think that stat there really does lean towards the Eels. The Eels have won their past 4 games straight over the Warriors. The Warriors have never won at CommBank Stadium, losing all 3. But the Eels have not won without Clint Gutherson since 2017. He is just so important to what they do. So this is easily the toughest game this round to pick for me. And it really does hinge on whether Sean Johnson plays or not for now.
And the beauty of being live, we get an answer. Trent says that Sportsbet, who will give you odds on points scored by goal kickers, have Arce as the kicker. And the reason I'm not optimistic on his ability is that, if I'm not mistaken, when the Eels played without Mitch Moses, they still handed the kicking tee to Gutherson ahead of Arce when they were both in the side. And Gutherson is an outstanding player that can do it all, but not that great of a goal kicker. So that's why I say Para's down to their third choice.
Yep, and I'm just looking at New South Wales Cup this year. Dejan Arce has not kicked a goal there all season. And I'm trying to go through his summary of his career right now. I can't see any goal kicking. I don't think he's ever kicked a goal.
So, the beauty of this would be if the Eels scored 4 tries and ended up with 18 or 19 points.
Yeah, I am wrong. Sorry. For Townsville in 2019 and 21, he took 7 goals. And for Redcliffe in 2022, he took 20 goals. So you got
the success percentage there?
No, I don't have that here. That's blank there on the rugby league.
Small sample size anyway, but mate, look, I appreciate the work you're putting in, finding these stats live.
Yeah, live and on the spot. Let's move on to our next game. But Saturday, 7:35 p.m, Rabbitohs v Doggies. We're at Accor Stadium, Sydney, which is a home ground for both sides, really. The line is set at -5.5 in the Bunnies' favour, but they will be without Walker, Cook, Murray, and Keon Kolomatangi. Huge changes to their lineup. I won't go through them all. The key return for them is Isaiah Tuss. For the Bulldogs, sexy Toby Sexton comes in and makes his club debut immediately at halfback. That moves Burton to 6. Toppany and Braden Burns are the new centres. Not sure I like that. But Jake Averillo moves to fullback. They have dropped Hayes Perham. I was going to make a joke there. I won't. I think everyone knows what I was thinking. But how are you seeing this one? You got the Doggies as the best bet, am I right?
That's right. So speaking of, New Zealand catching their opponent at a good time, and the comment there earlier, if true that Brandy did say, let's rip the guts out of Parramatta and South Sydney, well, perfect, because those are the 2 teams I'm betting against this week for the best bet. So he's done us a favour there if that's the case. Look, 66-0, the Dogs were flogged. And it's funny, when you watch a game and you just see them letting in try after try after try, obviously it hits a point pretty quick where you're not thinking, can they recover in this game? You start to think, can they recover this season? Can they have any chance of winning even next week? And you know what the answer might be, how you can recover from 66-0? Well, when your opponent loses Cam Murray, Cody Walker, Damien Cook, Keon Kolomatangi, and still has Latrell Mitchell and Campbell Graham out longer term, that might be the Dogs' ticket here. I know Addo-Carr's on Origin duty, and then the axe has swung on Perham Alamotti. But you've got your former halfback parachuting in at 7, switching Birdo to a more natural 6. As you've heard on the best bet, I am on the Bulldogs plus 4.5 at $2.02 on Dabble. And I know some punters are going to disagree with me purely on principle of these team lists. They're going to say, look at Souths and, how good they are. Look how woeful the Dogs are. But honestly, this week, Avarilla's a good player to swing in there at fullback. Carraz and Burns are good, backline options. I know Johnston is still there for Souths and may still manufacture a try, but he's not the same player without the superstars that set him up, who he connects, beautifully with. Who's the best spine player in this game? For me, it's Matty Burton. Who's the second best spine player in this game? For me, it's Reid Marnie, the man who said his fans, didn't have a right to boo him and get off the bus if you're not behind us. I know he was emotional when he made those comments. Now he's got to come out and win his fans back by leading his team to a win. In the forward pack, South still have Totola, Burgess, Sele, Mwale. It's a great prop rotation, but I think the Dogs can hang in there with them with King, Sutton, TPJ as well to mix it up. So not only am I tipping the Dogs 4.5, as I said, I've actually tipped a bonus play there on Dabble as well. 265 head-to-head. I'm going to go as far as calling this a WTF game in my mind. Wrong team favored. I think the Dogs are going to win this one outright. Take it for what you will, because I know best bets only hitting a little over 50% this year, but I feel strongly about this. This is the way I see it, and I've explained why, and I've got a mixed matchup that's going to feed into this as well. But what do you think? Do I make a compelling case, Clarkey?
Yeah, you do. And I'm looking at the lineups now. I think you're right. There probably is a slight edge for that front row for the Bunnies. But you look at the Bulldogs bench, and a bench of Flanagan, who isn't noted as a bench player, but he has played well in the NRL when he's come in this year. Curtis Moran, TPG, and Harrison Edwards. Certainly a lot more stronger and experienced in that Bunnies bench there. So I actually am going to go the Doggies here outright for an upset. I know it sounds so stupid coming off a 66-0 thrashing, but I just don't know what to expect from a Bunny side that's missing their six or seven of their best players. I just don't know what to expect. Whereas I do know for the Doggies, as bad as they were last week, Avarillo was awesome at fullback for them there last year. Reid Marnie is a hooker that would have been selected for the Maroons if not for injury. I know that Toby Sexton is a very good halfback, having watched him closely at the Titans. Don't be fooled by his performance throughout the 2022 season. It's unfair to judge him off that. Every time he came in 2021 and 2023, he was awesome for us, great in reserve grade, and I know Matt Burton is a rep caliber premiership winner. So because I know that, but I don't know how the Rabbitohs are going to look, I am going to go the Doggies for an upset here. I know it sounds wild. Look, coming off a 66-0 loss, you can never confidently say absolutely Doggies are going to win here. But I think they are better equipped than the Tigers, for example, to bounce back from a devastating loss, because I rate Cameron Serrato and Gus Gould, the two men in charge there, to a higher standard than I do Sheens and Benji at this stage. The Bulldogs do miss more tackles than any other side in the competition this year, and they missed 63 in round 18. Defense has been something they've been working on all season. It hasn't quite clicked yet, but they do have an opportunity here with a South, spine of Havili, Hawkins, Ilias, and Taff. It's not really a spine to me that's saying we're going to throw plenty at you, and if you're not on your A grade defensively, we're going to score. To me, it's a young, inexperienced spine that might actually struggle. The Rabbitohs have scored 32 or more points in their past 5 games over the Bulldogs, but in all 5 of those games, their stars were there. The Rabbitohs have only won 3 from 11 without Cody Walker since his debut for them in 2016. So just that stat alone, Winnie, 3 from 11 without Walker since he debuted. Then you add Cook, Murray, Kolomatangi, Latrell, Graham to that list. I can't tip the Bunnies here. I'm going the Doggies for an upset.
So you don't think the Dogs' defense has clicked just yet? That's your expert opinion. I think it'd be hard to disagree with you there. Now, look, we say a week is a long time in rugby league. The two teams that got absolutely obliterated last week are both on shorter turnarounds. We're going to have to hope that 6 days is long enough in rugby league. But you and I both think it is. And in fact, it's going to feed into my mixed matchup as well, because I made the case why I don't think the Eels will score a lot of points against New Zealand. And I also think the Bulldogs can get the outright upset, but certainly to cover the line against the Bulldogs, against the Bunnies, I think Canterbury can find 20 points in this game or thereabouts. Whereas I've got the Eels at, no more than 3 tries and hopefully 18 or even a little less that we need to chase down. So it is Bulldogs to outscore Eels, an underdog price of $2.35. You can up to 200 of that on Toppy. Our promo code is TP Live. If you need an account, we have nailed this the last couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, I love that one. It feeds perfectly into both our best bets, so it just makes sense at this point. And sounds like we both back it, but somewhere we're both not going to back is undoubtedly this next game. It is the Winny Clarkey Cup. You have the bragging rights 1-0. We won't talk about that game, but it's the Titans v Dolphins Sunday, 4 p.m. We're at Seabus Super Stadium. The line is set at -2.5 in the Titans' favour. For the Titans, Sammy is back, so Jojo Fafita moves to the bench. Jaden Campbell moves to fullback for Brimo. Cleese Haas moves to back row for Dave Fafita, and Isaac replaces his brother Tino in the front row. Jacob Arlick is named for his NRL debut via the bench. For the Dolphins, no Hammer and no Felice Carfusi. Jerry Marshall King is named, but I don't think he'll play when if I'm absolutely honest. That AC joint looked it's looked pretty bad so far this year. And of course, Wallace and Milford both return via the interchange. I know who you're going to tip in this one, right? But go ahead and let us know why.
Well, do you know who I'm going to tip? It is a shame that the Winnie Clarkey Cup round 2 is in an Origin week. Shame for your boys, mostly Clarkey, with 4 of your gun players unavailable. The Finns will miss the Hammer for sure. And, losing Carfusi is kind of like an Origin loss in terms of what he means for his team. And I'm going to call Marshall King. I'm going to echo what you said there and call that a loss. At the very least, it's a major question mark. I mean, he couldn't finish the game against Brisbane, and there were reasons why he may push through an injury in that one. I'm not certain at all he'll line up in this one on Sunday. And you know what? We've got no secrets from our audience, so I'm going to be candid and share a conversation you and I had offline last week when I was talking to you about weighing up whether or not I want to drive 2.5 hours to attend this game. And I said, can I be honest with you? I'm probably not going to go because I know the Titans are going to win. I know you're going to get us back. It just always happens after we embarrassed you. When I say we, obviously the Finns down 26-0, coming back and winning. Sorry to remind you there, Clarkey, at Suncorp. You just know this is a game that means a lot and it's going to be discussed a lot for the Titans locker room this week. But to be honest, I had forgotten that it would be an Origin-affected week when I was saying that to you. And then when you look at who's out, I kind of walk that back that the Finns can win this week with all the players that are available. The Finns can go back-to-back in the Winnie Clarkey Cup, in my opinion. They can, I'm saying. All in all, I look at the teams. I think they're really evenly matched. I think we get a really good contest on Sunday. Both these sides played reasonable last weekend, off narrow losses. I'll give my team the edge in the forward pack, and I will give yours the edge in the outside backs. Campbell is probably the best backup fullback in the comp, so that helps when you unexpectedly kind of lose Brimson. And then you got the Gold Coast home advantage, and as I said, that important factor which you guys know we believe in on this show, which is revenge, that the Titans are going to want to serve to the Finns, and this game might just mean more to the Titans. That's why I could only look to the Titans in this one. But look, honestly, if I really thought it was a great value bet, I would tip the Titans here. I've tipped against the Dolphins multiple times this season, but I think the line's pretty reasonable. -2.5, -3.5 makes sense to me. So the upset is not out of the equation. And I'm going to offer to you, mate, we had a bet, side bet last time these teams met on either of us to buy a jersey for the other's firstborn. So if you let me know how confident you are. If you want to go double or nothing, we can arrange that.
Let me warm up here because last week, I come on here, guns blazing, red hot, confident as anything. And the bunker robbed us. No, I'm only joking, but I wish that try was given for Dave. But I'm going back to back with my Titans confidence. At this point, I know our viewers are thinking this guy is such a fool with his optimism on his own club, but I'm confident. I'm going to give us an 8.5 out of 10. We win this game because revenge is such an important factor here. Last time we versed the Dolphins, we were absolutely embarrassed, and it was the start of the end of our coach being sacked. At that point, we were outside the 8. If we won that game, we went in the 8, which met his contract. Because of that game, we lost. We fell outside the 8, which was why Justin Holbrook was eventually given his marching papers. It was written in the contract. Plain and simply, we were hurt. I was embarrassed as a fan, so I can't imagine how embarrassed the Titans players were losing that game. There's some former Titans in that lineup that we're going to want to smash, absolutely. And we are missing our Origin stars. That hurts. Absolutely, it hurts. Dave, Tino, Brimson, and Moeki Fotueka have been our best players all year. You can't deny it. But our depth is still better than the Dolphins. No disrespect to the Dolphins in that area because they are a new club. They've only had 1 year to build their roster. We've been in the comp since 2007. It's just that simple. Our depth is stronger. You guys will really struggle without JMK. He is so important at hooker there. Felice Carfusi is your forward leader, and the hammer is your best attacking weapon. All three of them, I do not believe, will play. We have won 5 of our last 7 at home. We're really starting to build something up there on the Gold Coast. Dolphins have conceded 160 points in their last 4 games at an average of 40. So there's points there to be scored, and we know the Titans are a good attacking team. It's one of the things we are good at. Not only are we good at it, we piled points on you guys last time we played. We've shown that we can do it. We just need to play the full 80. Therefore, I'm going to tip us to score at least 30. Because you guys are averaging 40 per game, I reckon we can score 30, and I'm going to back us to defend that total. I'm going to back us to defend 30. We've got to be able to defend 30. I think we can still play finals this year, and if not, I think we're on the verge of it. And if we can't defend 30 points, then that's the line in the sand for me. So I'm going my boys on trust. 8 out of 10 confidence rating, super confident, and we're on. You name the bet right now. We're on. Name the bet. I'm as confident as you like.
Yeah, just simply head to head. You don't have to even cover the line. I'll give you that because I think the Dolphins were about the same amount of favorite when these sides hooked up at Suncorp. So it's flipped favorite with home field there. Let us know. Clarkey's probably more convincing than me and more confident in his team, admittedly, than I am with mine. And I want to say again, the beauty of being live, we've got Kyle Gordon. He's gone out and got us the exact stats that Dejan Arce, 28 of 42, 66% career goal kicking. I reckon I could kick about 66% as well. So that's one of another reason to like my Eels underplay there. If you agree, and you like New Zealand's chances on Saturday.
Absolutely. All right. So in the background, we'll come up with the challenge for the Winny Clarkey Cup. We'll come up with that offline, and we'll put in the TryPod as to exactly what we come up with. But yeah, at this point, guys, that is all we have time for on today's show. But we want to say thank you very much for being with us. We'll be back next Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. to preview everything State of Origin Game 3. And then we'll be back on the Thursday at 6:30 p.m. to preview everything round 20 at that point. So yeah, from me, guys, thank you very much for being with us. We hope to see you on the recap show as well this Sunday after the final game. Thank you one last time.
And from me, Ryan says, I'd like to see Winnie slot one from the sideline. All right, I'll send you a link to a goal kicking challenge video we did many moons ago. Mind you, Alex, again, it's his birthday, so he'll be happy to remember that one because he did beat me that night, but we both held our own in that kicking. Anyway, appreciate everyone who tuned in tonight. Have a great week, guys. Enjoy the footy. We'll be back Sunday and then Tuesday for Origin 3 preview. And if you have any punts, of course, always do it responsibly. All the best, and